So here we are.
Yeah, we are, really.
We are. With Malcolm
Whether we
Clarke.
like it or not.
We like it or not, yeah. Person that has 2 Oscars but totally has zero need of talking about it. I went to your studio for movie screening.
Right.
And from far away, I saw this little gold statues. I don't know whether you remember, I ran back to you. I was like, Malcolm, I'm like, are they real? I was so stupid to ask that question, but I was so like surprised. I was like, are they real? And then you just looked at me with your, that look. You're like, no, I got it on top off. And that was such a good example of the person I guess you are. Having them makes it easier, or it's more pressure because whatever you do silently gets a little bit compared to it?
What it does principally is reassures people that I know what I'm doing and that I'm not a totally crazy person. There's a certain degree of kind of validation that it affords. But in my business, it's a pretty unforgiving business, and what you did 5 or 10 or 15 years ago really doesn't have a huge amount of strength in terms of getting you your next job. There's also another interesting thing about, the last Academy Award I got was in 2014. So that's 10 years ago, 11 years ago actually. It's nice to have, but ultimately it can be something of a disadvantage. One thing that people say, as you got 2 Academy Awards, it must be awfully expensive. And I say, well, yes, I am. but they never pay as much as I think I deserve. I'm lucky. I've been nominated 4 times. I've won, or as my detractors say, he's lost twice.
It's like the glass is half full or
exactly. So my glass is exactly half full.
Yeah,
but that's okay. Let's not make too much of it because there's a lot more interesting things.
And you
to
are
talk
not making
about.
much of it, as obviously as from my experience.
Yeah.
People choose to become lawyers because they seek for justice. Some become doctors because they want to heal. Some become artists because they want to create. I'm wondering what makes people to become a documentary filmmaker.
Well, I didn't want to be a documentary filmmaker, but I did want to be a filmmaker, and proof of that is that when I was 21, my mum gave me a book that she had found in the attic. It was a school exercise book that I had filled in written myself when I was 8. It was a list of all the films that I'd watched.
You can remember that all?
It was not only the name of the film, it was the name of the stars of the film and the director. There were many, many, many films. And my mother attests to the fact that I never wanted to drive a fire engine or be an astronaut or be a cowboy. I only always wanted to make films. The trajectory was always, how the heck do I become a filmmaker from the time I was very young. So I was actually quite single-minded about it.
Everyone who ends up in China, they all have that moment when everything has started.
I came in the early 80s. I was sent to make a film. I was working for ABC in New York. And it was very funny because there were 30, I remember there were 13 producers or directors. We did both. And I was the youngest by far. And everyone else was much older than me. And so when the announcement was made that ABC was going to make a film in China, they wanted someone to say, I'll go. Nobody would go. Everyone thought it was going to be uncomfortable, it was going to be miserable, and indeed it was uncomfortable, and on occasions it was miserable, but it was also extraordinary. But I was the youngest. I was already interested in Asia. I'd studied in Japan, in Kyoto, for a while. And I was here for over 6 months. And I saw so much, but it was a very, very different China. We went up the Yangtze River and then we came back down the Yellow River. And we saw a huge amount of China. At a time when China was really not yet opened up. It was very poor. It was very primitive. It was like being in kind of, early 19th century Europe. But it was also kind of inspiring because it was very clear if someone could figure out how to kind of corral this energy and this enthusiasm and this appetite for hard work, relentless hard work. If someone could do that, then this place was going to take off. And of course, Deng Xiaoping did that. And he released the genie from the bottle. And the rest is history.
Let's talk a little bit about filmmaking. I'm curious, what makes a subject worthy of a film?
And this is really telling a story against myself, because I had made a film in the early 2000s about the Holocaust. It was a film called Prisoner of Paradise. It was nominated for an Academy Award, as it happens, but it did not win. It was a very, very hard film to make, because making a film about the Holocaust is not something which is psychologically very beneficial to your health. You see a lot of bad images, and you deal with a lot of stories. But one of the things that's interesting about the film business, if you do have a successful film, and this was deemed a successful film, then a lot of people will come and say, oh, you made a film about the Holocaust. I've got a great story about the Holocaust. Maybe you'd like to do that. When actually the last thing you want in your life is to ever do another film about the Holocaust, because it's a hard subject. I kept saying no to things. And I had one friend who was a concert pianist, and she kept telling me about this woman who lived in London, who was actually an inmate in Theresienstadt.
Are we talking about Alice?
Yes, and Alice was in this camp. This woman who was a concert pianist in Central Europe, she was sent, because she was famous as a concert pianist, she was sent to Theresienstadt. And I, Mr. Stupid here, I said, I don't want to make a film about this lady. I've met lots of ladies who were in Theresienstadt, and they're lovely, but I don't want to make another one. I don't want to do it again. And so I kept saying no, and I kept saying no. But the problem was that this woman had a really lovely apartment in New York, and I liked to stay in this apartment. I went to London on business, and I said, I'll go see this lady. And I went to her house for tea in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. And I'd heard what an extraordinary person she was, and that's usually people are a lot less extraordinary when you meet them. This woman was the opposite of that. She was remarkable. So by probably 3:20 in the afternoon, I was feeling like a complete idiot, and because I had resisted
so long,
and at the time she was 107 years old. So in the taxi back to my hotel that afternoon, I called my crew in Canada. I said, get the equipment together. I want to bring you to London this weekend. We had no money. The film was basically made on a credit card, and which I'm still paying off. and I brought them back, and we made this film. She was one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met in my life.
Personally, how I see you in that movie is in all the silences between her words. This very gentle silence that you captured, like her hands, or like the silence between her words. Sometimes I think it's a little bit like, in music we say actual music is in between the notes. And being able to wonderfully capture the silence, I think, is one of the powerful points for me, for that movie.
I think that's part of the kind of secret sauce of being a good filmmaker. People tend to fear silences. Talk, fill the gap. But the interesting thing is, when I interview someone, if someone is nervous or doesn't know quite how to answer a question, or thinks, the first thing out of someone's mouth is what they're most comfortable with. But if after they've answered the question, you stay silent and just look at them.
Now you're doing this.
See, you're doing it.
I was like, now you're doing this.
Because there's a gap, and you'll fill it. As a filmmaker, I look at some of my mediocre films.
Are there?
There are, but sometimes you can't tell that they're mediocre. Why? Music. I mean, Alice said music saved her life. Music often saves my films. But the trick with movie music, and not many people get it, but it is a truism, that audiences know if you're yanking their chains, if the music is telling them what to think and telling them how to feel. They know it. Sometimes they buy into it, but the point is, it is manipulative, and and I don't like that. And so my guy, whose name is Luc Saint-Pierre, I have to little shout out for Luc because he's saved my life so many times. But his music is not manipulative. It's quite restrained, and it sits back, occupies the space without being in your face, and that's very, very important to me.
Yeah.
So, but music is a hugely important and undeservedly thought of as a lesser component of films. It's hugely important.
I don't know which is harder, finding a good story or letting it go once it's done.
I'm good at letting it go because I'm a coward, and I don't want to go back and look at my films after they're finished. So I never do.
Oh, you don't?
No, because all I see when I go back, and I have done this on occasion, but I always see the mistake. I know I'm going to be dissatisfied, and it's like, what a jerk! Why did I let that? I shoulda, woulda, coulda. At some point, you have a baby, and you have to let it walk into the world under its own.
Yeah, but you just.
So.
I know you've been such an advocate of telling real China stories. Part of me understands it, but also another part is really curious why it is so personally important for you to tell China stories.
Having the perspective of being in China before pretty much everybody I know, every Western person I know, they came later. I came because of an accident of history. I was very moved by the journey that I took, kind of very inspired by the people that I met, mostly working class people, mostly peasants, frankly. And to see how far China has come. When you look at what these guys in China have achieved, it's incomparable, kind of impressive. But they get defamed, they get insulted, they get patronized, and they are feared. That has to stop. In the West, we have to have a more mature relationship with China. And
that's the reason you dedicate yourself.
Yeah. So that's why I'm here. I just want to, and I don't want to make propaganda. All I want to do is to show real movies, with integrity and honesty, and hopefully with entertainment and with box office.
Let's not forget
because as I said at the beginning of this interview, you're only as good as your last movie, and they call it the movie business. And at the end of the day, you have to sell tickets, and you have to show people a good time. They have to both feel entertained, and if we can also educate them a little bit, and if they can feel enriched, they've learned something, then that's the trifecta. That's what we want.
Yeah.
I've made films in the West for so long. I don't really have what I regard as any huge challenge in the West. China is a big challenge, and I have to be very careful what I say because I don't want to undermine the work of Chinese filmmakers. I just think it's a different way of telling stories. There's some really talented people, but the films don't make an impact, and I feel that soft power is power.
I agree.
And when we look at South Korean film industry, many South Korean films are on the Western streaming services. Yeah. That's power.
Korean dramas.
Yeah, and if China could replicate that, I think it would be marvelous.
Let's do it.
It's a different approach. 1.4 billion people. Yeah. That means there's an awful lot of good stories to tell.
As a person that always watch a movie, then especially I also like documentaries. At the end of the movie, I always think, what is actually a good movie? The one that gives you the answers, or the one that leaves you with questions?
Without a doubt, it's the movie that asks questions and doesn't answer them and allows you to provide your own answers. That, for me, is a good film. I want to open a world that you maybe are curious about, but you don't really know much about. I'll go and I'll bring you back a brochette of images, you'll have more information at your disposal, and then you can make up your own mind. But I don't want to be the person who says, this, you should think this. This is the way you should. I think that's the best film.
Yeah. If you had to pick one song that captures your personal journey, or be it the journey in China, which one would you pick?
First of all, I play music.
What do you play?
I play the cello, I play the flute,
do play cello?
I play the piano, and the guitar.
Never offered me to have a duet.
Yeah, because I would be embarrassed. A piece of music I listen to a lot, and always have since I first heard it when I was a teenager, is Strauss. Four Last Songs.
Nice.
If ever the Four Last Songs are being performed anywhere, I'll go.
TV series, or you like movie?
I prefer movies, although, we all have our guilty pleasure. So I do watch sometimes.
If you organized dinner and you were allowed to invite two people alive or from history, who would you like to have dinner with, and who would you like to ask them?
This is going to sound odd, but my friend, Henry Kissinger, let me just predicate what I'm about to say by saying that he wasn't, we didn't hang out and go drinking together. We were not emotionally close. But he was very supportive of me, and he was very kind to me. And he was the reason I came to China the second time, because wanted me to make a film to try and bring China and the rest of the world closer together. So that was the reason I came back in 2014. Just before he died, and he was 100 when he died, he came to China and he called me. And I didn't pick up the call because I thought it was a spam call, which was, I will regret forever. His book on China is the most extraordinary work of both history and scholarship. His vision of this country and the qualities of this country, the history of the country, taught me a huge amount. He's my kind of North Star when it comes to China. We go out and have pizza together.
Pizza. Yeah, I was gonna ask what you're gonna order. So it's a pizza night.
Yes.
And for the last question, for someone who's watching this and they are maybe going through hard times, or they are unsure about their future path, what do you want them to remember? Whatever
you do, you have to do something that you love. And I regard myself as being enormously fortunate, because I've always done what I do now, and I love it. And frankly, the dirty little secret is, I get paid for it. I would pay them to let me do it, because it's such a privilege to do what I do. But we absolutely have to fight tooth and nail to find something which inspires us. And it's not easy. It's getting harder, but because I do know people who are in jobs that they don't enjoy, and they're lovely people, and they, at the core of their being, they have emptiness because they are not inspired by what they do. And we have to be. We have to do something worthwhile with our lives. It would be a tragedy to look back and see, what a privilege. I've had 60, 70, 80 years and I've wasted them. Inspiration and love what you're doing. Yeah. Thank you, Malcolm. My pleasure. So much. It's an honor to have you to talk about everything. Thanks for being behind the camera. With a face like this, you need to be behind the camera. The old joke is I have a face for radio. Radio. No, so thank you very much.